Emma's breath caught in her throat as the security guard's hand clamped down on her shoulder. "Stay right there, miss. The police are on their way." Her portfolio, the one containing every document proving who she really was, lay scattered on the pristine marble floor of Whitmore Country Club. A crowd of well-dressed people circled around her like vultures, their phones recording every humiliating second. "Can you believe this?" A woman's voice rang out above the murmurs. "She actually thought she could waltz in here claiming to be one of the founding families." "That takes some serious nerve," someone else laughed, "or serious stupidity." Emma stood frozen, her hands trembling at her sides. The papers at her feet told the truth: birth certificates, trust documents, stock ownership records, everything official, everything real, everything ignored. "Please," she whispered, but her voice was drowned out by the laughter. This wasn't supposed to happen. She'd come here today with hope, with documentation, with the asterisk law on her side. But none of that mattered now, because the moment she'd stepped through those gates, they'd already decided who she was, and it had nothing to do with the truth. But how did a straight-A student from Riverside Academy end up handcuffed at a country club she supposedly owned? How did a girl who'd spent years living quietly, riding buses, working coffee shop shifts, hiding her true identity, suddenly become the center of a viral scandal? Let me take you back 3 days earlier, to where this whole nightmare really began. Before we dive into Emma's incredible journey, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. The 5:30 a.m. alarm buzzed through the tiny bedroom. Emma's hand shot out from under the covers, silencing it before it could wake her grandmother in the next room. She sat up slowly, rubbing sleep from her eyes. The room was dark except for the streetlight glow filtering through thin curtains. Her textbooks sat stacked on the small wooden desk in the corner, exactly where she'd left them at midnight after finishing her chemistry homework. Emma swung her legs out of bed, feet touching the cold floor. The apartment walls were paper-thin. She could hear Mr. Patterson next door already awake, his coffee maker gurgling through its morning routine. In the kitchen, her grandmother Rose stood at the stove, humming softly. At 73 years old, she moved slower than she used to, but she still insisted on making breakfast every morning. "Morning, baby girl," Rose said without turning around. "Morning, Grandma." Emma poured orange juice into 2 mismatched glasses. "You didn't have to get up so early." "Nonsense. You've got that chemistry test today. You need proper fuel." They ate in comfortable silence. Rose occasionally glanced at her granddaughter, pride evident in her warm brown eyes. Emma didn't notice. She was mentally reviewing chemical formulas, her lips moving silently. At 6:15, Emma grabbed her backpack and headed for the door. Rose followed like she always did. "Be safe, baby girl, and remember." "I know, Grandma. Hold my head high. I'm a Richardson." Emma recited the words she'd heard 1,000 times. Then she hugged her grandmother tight. "Love you. Love you more." The bus stop sat 2 blocks away. The number 42 bus arrived right on schedule. Emma climbed aboard, swiped her student pass, and found a seat near the back. She pulled out her phone and earbuds but didn't turn on any music. Instead, she stared out the window as the bus rolled through her neighborhood. Small apartment buildings gave way to modest single-family homes. Then those homes got bigger. The yards got wider. The cars and driveways got newer and shinier. By the time they reached Riverside, the houses looked like mansions, all columns and circular driveways and perfectly manicured lawns. 2 transfers, and 50 minutes later, Emma stepped off her final bus 3 blocks from school. She was always careful never to arrive by bus right at the gates. Some habits of hiding never quite went away. Riverside Academy sprawled before her like something out of a movie. Red brick buildings covered in ivy. Stone pathways winding between courtyards. Everything looked expensive because everything was asterisk expensive. Emma adjusted her backpack straps and walked through the iron gates. In the student parking lot, her classmates were arriving in luxury SUVs. She watched Brandon Mitchell pull up in a brand new Range Rover. "Hey, Emma," a friendly voice called out. Emma turned to see Sophie Chun jogging toward her, tennis bag slung over one shoulder. "Morning," Emma replied, managing a smile. "Ready for the come test?" Sophie fell into step beside her. "As ready as I'll ever be." "That means you're definitely getting another A," Sophie laughed. "Some of us mere mortals would kill for your brain." The chemistry test went exactly as expected. Emma finished with 20 minutes to spare, double-checked her answers, then sat quietly while her classmates rushed through the final questions. By lunch, Emma was mentally exhausted but satisfied. She found Sophie at their usual table near the windows, along with Marcus Webb and Jennifer Park. They'd formed an unofficial alliance freshman year, 4 scholarship students who didn't quite belong, finding comfort in shared experience. "How was the test?" Jennifer asked as Emma sat down. "Fine, you." "I think I blanked on half of it," Jennifer said dramatically. "Tell me something good instead." Marcus grinned. "I got into the finals for the debate tournament, state level." "That's amazing." Sophie reached over to high-five him. Emma was laughing at one of Marcus's terrible jokes when her phone buzzed in her pocket. She pulled it out, expecting a text from Rose. Instead, she saw an email notification from an unfamiliar address. The subject line made her stomach drop. "Urgent. Board meeting notification, Richardson Family Trust." Her finger hovered over the notification. Around her, her friends kept talking, but their voices faded to background noise. "Emma, you okay?" Sophie's voice cut through. "Yeah, sorry, I need to check something." Emma opened the email, her eyes scanning quickly. "Dear Ms. Richardson, asterisk. This notice serves as official notification of an emergency board meeting to be held this Saturday, December 16th at 2:00 p.m. at Whitmore Country Club. The purpose of this meeting is to discuss and vote on proposed restructuring of club ownership and governance. As the representative of the Richardson Family Trust, your presence is required to maintain your family's voting rights on this matter. Failure to appear may result in decisions being made without Richardson family input." Emma read it twice, then a third time. "What's wrong?" Jennifer leaned over, trying to peek at the screen. Emma quickly locked her phone. "Nothing, just family stuff." But her hands were shaking slightly as she put the phone away. The rest of lunch passed in a blur. Emma barely tasted her food. Her mind was racing ahead, trying to figure out what this meeting meant. Why now? Why an emergency meeting? Finally, at 3:15, the final bell rang. Emma practically ran to her locker, grabbed her coat, and headed for the exit. She pulled out her phone as soon as she cleared the building, dialing Rose's number. "Emma, what's wrong, baby? Did you get an email about a board meeting from the club?" Silence on the other end, then a heavy sigh. "I did this morning." "What does it mean?" "Come home, sweetheart. We need to talk about this in person." The apartment door was unlocked when Emma arrived. She found Rose in the kitchen, 2 mugs of tea already steeping on the small table, legal documents spread between them. "Sit, baby girl." Emma dropped her backpack and sat, wrapping her cold hands around the warm mug. Rose pulled out a document. The letterhead read, "Whitmore Country Club, Original Charter and Bylaws, 1968. Your grandfather," Rose began, "was a remarkable man. Built a real estate business when banks wouldn't give loans to men who looked like him. Made his fortune through brilliance and determination." Emma knew this part of the story, had heard it dozens of times growing up. In 1968, he did something nobody thought possible. He became a founding member of Whitmore Country Club, 35% ownership, put down serious money. He wanted to build something different, a place where success mattered more than anything else. Rose's finger traced across the document. This clause here, it guarantees Richardson family representation on the board, forever. As long as there's a Richardson heir, that seat remains ours. Can't be voted out. Can't be diluted. Your grandfather made sure of that. So what's restructuring? Emma asked. It's their attempt to change the rules. Convert to an LLC, reduce our percentage from 35 to 10, essentially steal what your grandfather built. Can they do that? Not legally, not if we show up and object, but if no Richardson appears. Rose trailed off. Emma stared at the documents. We need to call Mr. Morgan. He'll handle it right. Rose pulled out her phone, showing Emma a text message. Lawrence Morgan, asterisk, I can bring full legal team. Shut this down immediately. What time works Saturday? Mr. Morgan is ready to go, Rose said. One phone call and he'll show up with lawyers and briefcases and legal documents that'll make their heads spin. Then why haven't you called him? Rose reached across the table, taking Emma's hand. Because I wanted to give you a choice, sweetheart. You could show up with an army of lawyers. Let them see the money and the power first. Or what? Or you could go alone. Walk in there as just Emma. Let them see asterisk you before they see everything else. Emma pulled her hand back, standing up from the table. She paced to the window, staring out at the street below. Why would I do that? She asked without turning around. Your grandfather believed in something, Rose said quietly. He believed that people should be judged by their character, by what they do, not what they look like. He fought his whole life for that principle. Emma turned around. Her grandmother's eyes were wet with tears. If you walk in there with lawyers, they'll respect the legal power, but they won't see asterisk you asterisk. They'll never learn the lesson your grandfather wanted to teach. What lesson? That they were wrong, about their assumptions, about their prejudices, about everything they thought they knew when they looked at someone different from themselves. Emma walked back to the table and sat down. Okay, I'll go alone, but I want copies of everything, every document that proves I am who I say I am. Already done. Rose pulled out a leather portfolio, opening it to reveal neatly organized documents, birth certificate, death certificates for both parents, trust documents, stock certificates, family photos spanning decades. Everything you need, Rose said. Emma took the portfolio, feeling its weight, not just paper and leather but the weight of history, of legacy. Saturday at 2:00 p.m., she whispered. Saturday at 2:00 p.m., Rose confirmed. And Emma, no matter what happens, remember that you asterisk are a Richardson. That's not about money or ownership. It's about character, about knowing who you are even when everyone else is wrong. Friday arrived with gray skies and cold rain. Emma went through her classes in a daze. At 5:00 p.m., the deadline for confirming attendance, Emma sent a simple reply. I will be there, Emma Richardson asterisk. That evening she and Rose laid out her outfit for tomorrow. Nothing fancy, they didn't own anything fancy. A simple dark blue blouse, clean jeans, her only pair of nice shoes, the leather portfolio. You look beautiful, Rose said, even though Emma wasn't dressed yet. That night Emma barely slept. She kept checking her phone, half expecting Mr. Morgan to call. But her phone stayed silent except for a single text from Rose at midnight. Grandma Rose, asterisk your grandfather is with you. So am I, you're not alone. You've never been alone. Saturday morning dawned cold and clear. Emma woke at 7:00 a.m. even though the meeting wasn't until 2:00 p.m. She showered carefully, dressed in the outfit they'd chosen, stood in front of the bathroom mirror staring at her reflection. A 17-year-old girl looked back. She looked young. She looked nervous. She looked exactly like someone people might not believe. You can do this, she told her reflection. Rose made a big breakfast. Emma pushed food around her plate, managing a few bites. At 1:00 p.m., Emma called for a rideshare. Rose offered to come, but Emma shook her head. This is something I need to do alone. They stood at the apartment door, holding each other. You are the strongest person I know, Rose whispered, and they're about to find that out. The car arrived. Emma grabbed the leather portfolio and headed downstairs. The drive took 25 minutes. They traveled from Emma's modest neighborhood through increasingly wealthy areas. The houses got bigger. The yards got wider. Finally, they turned onto Whitmore Boulevard, and there it was. Whitmore Country Club rose ahead like something from another world. White columns gleamed in the afternoon sun. Perfectly manicured gardens surrounded the main building. The circular driveway hosted luxury cars being handled by uniformed valets. Everything was beautiful, everything was expensive, everything said, "You don't belong here." "This is it, miss. Whitmore Country Club," the driver said. Emma stared at the building. Her hands gripped the portfolio so tight her knuckles had gone pale. She could still call Mr. Morgan. One phone call and he'd be here with his legal team. But that wasn't the point. "Miss, do you want me to wait?" "No, thank you, I'm okay." She stepped out of the car. The December air hit her face, cold and sharp. The car drove away, leaving her alone. Ahead, people streamed in and out of the entrance. Women in expensive dresses, men in golf attire. Everyone looked comfortable. Everyone looked like they belonged. Emma smoothed her blouse, adjusted the portfolio, and started walking. The moment she approached, she felt eyes on her. A woman in a tennis dress paused to stare. Two men in polo shirts turned to watch her pass. Emma kept walking, head high. "You're a Richardson. You belong here more than anyone." She reached the entrance. A security guard stood beside the door, checking a clipboard. He was older, maybe 60, with kind eyes. "Can I help you, miss?" His voice was polite. "I'm here for the 2:00 board meeting." He glanced at his clipboard, frowning. "Name?" "Emma Richardson." The guard scanned his list, confusion crossing his face. "I'm sorry, I don't see." "I'm representing the Richardson Family Trust," Emma continued, keeping her voice steady. "I received an email notification about the emergency board meeting." The guard looked uncertain now. "Let me just check with." "What's going on here?" The voice boomed across the entrance. Emma turned to see a man approaching. Tall, tanned, expensive clothes, golf club still in hand. He looked to be in his early 50s, with perfectly styled gray hair and a Rolex that caught the sunlight. The security guard turned, relief evident. "Mr. Whitmore, this young lady says she's here for the board meeting. Claims she represents the Richardson family." The man, Richard Whitmore, let out a bark of laughter. "Did I hear that right?" He turned to his companions, his voice projecting. "Everyone, you've got to hear this. This girl says she's a Richardson." More people gathered. Emma felt the circle growing, felt phones being pulled from pockets. Her heart hammered, but she forced herself to stay calm. "Sir, I am Emma Richardson. I have documentation." She started to open her portfolio. "If you'll just look at." Richard moved forward, snatching the portfolio from her hands before she could react. "Documentation." He held it high, showing it to the crowd. "Of course you have documentation. Let me guess, printed these at the library this morning." The crowd laughed. Emma felt heat rising in her face. "Those are certified copies from the county clerk's office. They're real, if you would just examine them." "Examine them." A woman stepped forward, blonde, designer sunglasses perched on her head. "Honey, we all know those are fake. You really thought you could pull this off?" "I'm not lying," Emma said, her voice rising slightly. "My grandfather was James Richardson Sr. He was a founding member of this club in 1968. He owned 35%. After my parents died, the trust passed to me. I have every legal right to be here." Richard's laughter stopped. His face hardened. "Listen to me very carefully," he said, stepping closer, too close. "The Richardson family was wealthy, real asterisk wealthy. They didn't ride buses, they didn't wear Target clearance, and they sure as hell didn't need to scam their way into places they supposedly owned." He jabbed a finger at her chest, not quite touching but close enough to intimidate. "You're a con artist, a liar, and what you're doing is called fraud, which is an asterisk felony." Emma's hands balled into fists. Every instinct screamed at her to run, but she held her ground. "If you would just let me into the meeting, if you would just listen." "Listen," Richard's voice rose, "to a thief, to someone committing identity theft right in front of us." He turned to the security guard. "Mike, call the police, now." Emma's worst fear was coming true. The police were being called. Her documents were being dismissed as fake, and an entire crowd stood watching, recording, judging her guilty before she'd even had a chance to prove her innocence. Mike Torres lifted his radio to his mouth. His hand shook slightly. 15 years working at this club, and something about this moment felt wrong. "Dispatch, this is Mike at Whitmore Country Club main entrance," he said slowly. "Need police response for possible trespassing and fraud." Richard smiled, satisfied. He turned to the crowd, still holding Emma's portfolio like a trophy. "This is what happens when people try to take advantage," he announced. "But we're smarter than that." Patricia Whitmore, Richard's wife, stepped forward with her phone raised, filming everything. "This is going straight to the neighborhood watch group," she said. "People need to know these scams are happening." Emma's throat tightened. She wanted to scream, to grab her documents back, to force them to look at the truth. But she knew that would only make things worse. So she stood perfectly still, hands at her sides, breathing slowly. "Please," she said quietly, looking directly at Richard. "Just look at the documents, that's all I'm asking." Richard laughed. "Why would I waste my time looking at forgeries?" "Because if they're real, you're making a terrible mistake." Something flickered across Richard's face, just for a second, but it vanished quickly, replaced by stubborn anger. "They're not real, you're not real, and in about 5 minutes you're going to be in handcuffs." Emma's phone buzzed. She carefully pulled it out, moving slowly. 3 missed calls from Mr. Morgan, 2 text messages. "Lawrence Morgan, asterisk Emma, I'm 10 minutes away. Do not say anything until I arrive." "Lawrence Morgan, asterisk if police show up, invoke your right to remain silent. I'm coming." Emma typed back quickly, "They won't let me leave. They called the police." 2 police cruisers pulled up, lights flashing. 2 officers stepped out. The first was a man in his mid-30s with a military crew cut. His nameplate read KELLY. The second was a younger woman with dark hair pulled back. Her nameplate read Carter. Richard strode toward them immediately. "Officers, thank God you're here. We have a situation. This young woman forced her way onto private property. She's claiming to be someone she's not. Identity theft, fraud. We want her arrested." Officer Kelly surveyed the scene. "What's the situation, sir?" "This young woman is claiming to be a Richardson. She's got fake documents. We want her removed." Officer Carter stepped forward. "Miss, what's your name?" "Emma Richardson," Emma said clearly. "And why are you here?" "I'm here for a board meeting. I own 35% of this club through my family's trust." Kelly's eyebrows rose. "You're claiming you own part of this country club." "Not claiming. I do own it. My grandfather was James Richardson Sr., one of the founding members in 1968. Richard jumped in. "She's lying. The Richardson family died out years ago. She's got fake documents. I already looked at them." Carter turned to Mike. "Where are these documents?" Mike pointed at the portfolio Richard was holding. "Sir, can I see those papers?" Richard handed over the portfolio with exaggerated patience. Carter opened it carefully. She pulled out the birth certificate, examining the raised seal, then the death certificates, then the trust documents. Her expression shifted from neutral to uncertain. "Brad," she said to Kelly, "these look legitimate to me." Kelly glanced at the papers. Anyone can fake documents these days. "But the seals can be faked too," Richard interrupted. "She's good at this." Emma's voice cut through. "Call the county clerk's office. Call Lawrence Morgan at Morgan and Associates. He's been my family's attorney for 40 years. Any of them will verify those documents are real." "Lawrence Morgan," Richard laughed. "Now you're dropping Larry's name. You really did your homework." "He's on his way here right now," Emma said. "He'll be here in less than 10 minutes." Kelly frowned. "If that's true, why didn't you come with an attorney in the first place?" Emma met Kelly's eyes. "Because I wanted you to see me first, to hear me, to judge me based on my words and my evidence, not based on lawyers and money and power." "Noble," Richard said sarcastically. "Or maybe you just couldn't afford a lawyer." Patricia giggled. Several others in the crowd joined in. Kelly stepped closer to Emma. "Miss, I'm going to need you to turn around and put your hands behind your back." Emma's stomach dropped. Why?" "We need to detain you while we sort this out." "But I haven't done anything wrong." "That's what we're going to determine. Right now, you need to comply." Emma's mind raced. Everything Grandma Rose had taught her about staying calm flooded back. "Officer, I'm invoking my Fourth Amendment right against unlawful search and seizure," she said. "I have not committed a crime. You have no probable cause to detain me." Kelly's jaw tightened. "Miss, don't make this harder than it needs to be." "I'm not resisting. I'm asserting my rights." "Your rights will be explained at the station. Right now, turn around." Emma slowly turned around. She felt Kelly's hand on her shoulder. The cold metal of handcuffs touched her wrist. "You have the right to remain silent." The handcuffs clicked shut. Tight, too tight, the metal bit into her skin. Emma's vision blurred with tears she refused to let fall. She wouldn't give them that satisfaction. Carter picked up the leather portfolio, leafing through it more carefully now. She pulled out photographs. Black and white images of a distinguished-looking man, color photos of a young family, recent photos of Emma herself. Carter's expression shifted. She looked at Emma, really looked at her, then back at the photos. "Brad," she said quietly, "I think we need to verify these before we—" "We'll verify them at the station," Kelly cut her off. He guided Emma toward the police cruiser. Emma walked mechanically, her mind numb. This was it. She was being arrested. They reached the cruiser. Kelly opened the back door. That's when a new voice cut through the crowd. "Wait!" Everyone turned. An elderly man was pushing through the onlookers, moving slowly but with purpose. He was probably in his 80s, using a cane, wearing an old cardigan, but his eyes were sharp and clear. Richard's face paled slightly. "Harold, this doesn't concern you." Harold Whitfield ignored Richard completely. He made his way to where Emma stood. "What's this girl's name?" Harold demanded. "She claims it's Emma Richardson," Richard said, obviously lying. "Emma Richardson," Harold repeated slowly. He looked at her, studying her face. "Your grandfather, what was his name?" Emma's voice was barely a whisper. "James Richardson Sr." Harold's breath caught. "And your father?" "James Richardson Jr. He and my mother died 6 years ago in a car accident." Harold closed his eyes. For a long moment he didn't speak. When he opened them again, they were wet with tears. "James had a birthmark," Harold said quietly. "Behind his left ear, small, shaped like a crescent moon. He said his son had it, said his granddaughter had it too." The crowd went completely silent. Harold looked at Carter. "Officer, would you please check behind this young woman's left ear?" Carter glanced at Kelly, who shrugged. She approached Emma gently. "Miss, may I look behind your ear?" Emma nodded, turning her head. Carter carefully brushed aside Emma's hair. There, just behind her left ear, was a small crescent-shaped birthmark. Carter's eyes widened. It's there, exactly where he said. Harold's cane hit the ground with a loud thump. "Dear God, James, I'm so sorry." He turned to Kelly. "Officer, you will remove those handcuffs from that girl immediately. She is exactly who she says she is." Richard stepped forward, desperation in his voice now. "Harold, you can't possibly. A birthmark doesn't prove." "I was there." Harold's voice cracked like thunder. "I was there in 1968 when James Richardson became a founding member. I was there at little Emma's christening. I held her in these arms." He held up his shaking hands. "We sent her family letters for years. We knew there was an heir. And you," he turned on Richard, "you called the police on her rather than verify her identity." Richard's face flushed red. "I was protecting the club." "You were protecting your own interests," Harold snapped. "You've humiliated James Richardson's granddaughter, handcuffed her like a criminal, all because she didn't look like what you expected." The ugly truth of it hung in the air. Kelly slowly removed the handcuffs from Emma's wrists. "Miss Richardson, we apologize for the confusion." Emma rubbed her wrists where the metal had left red marks. She didn't respond. Harold approached her, his eyes full of sorrow. "Child, I am so deeply sorry. Your grandfather was my dearest friend." The sound of tires on gravel made everyone turn. A black Mercedes pulled up fast. The door flew open and a man in his 50s stepped out. Expensive suit, briefcase, unmistakable authority. Lawrence Morgan had arrived. His eyes took in everything instantly: Emma's red wrists, the police, the crowd, Richard's guilty expression. "Someone explained to me," Morgan said in a voice that could cut steel, "why my client was handcuffed." He pulled a thick folder from his briefcase. "Birth certificate, death certificates, trust documents, stock ownership, all certified, all legal, all proving Emma Richardson is exactly who she says she is." He slapped the folder onto the hood of the police car. "Now, who handcuffed my 17-year-old client?" Kelly shifted uncomfortably. "Sir, we were responding to a call." "A false call. You handcuffed a teenager on private property she partially owns based solely on the word of a man who couldn't be bothered to examine her documents." Morgan turned to Richard. His voice dropped to something quieter but infinitely more dangerous. "Richard Whitmore, you've just committed false imprisonment, defamation, and civil rights violations. My client has video evidence," he gestured to all the phones, "of you physically taking her legal documents, refusing to examine them, and calling the police with false accusations." Richard's mouth opened and closed. No sound came out. Patricia had stopped filming. She was backing away, trying to distance herself from her husband. Morgan looked at Emma. "Are you hurt?" Emma held up her wrists, showing the red marks. Morgan's jaw tightened. He pulled out his phone, took photos. Then he turned to Kelly. "Officer, I want your badge number. I'll be filing a formal complaint for unlawful detention and violation of my client's Fourth Amendment rights." Harold stepped forward. "Lawrence, I can testify to everything. I saw the whole thing." "Thank you, Harold," Morgan nodded. Then he looked at the crowd. "Anyone else here witness what happened?" Several people raised their hands. A woman in tennis whites stepped forward. "I saw everything. Mr. Whitmore never examined her documents. He just assumed she was lying." Others nodded. The tide had completely turned. Morgan addressed the crowd. "I encourage all of you to preserve any video you took. You may be called as witnesses." He turned back to Richard. "You're finished here. By Monday morning, I'll have filed enough legal actions to keep you in court for the next decade." Already, people in the crowd were sharing their videos, uploading to social media. The story was spreading in real time. Morgan gently took Emma's arm. "Come on, let's get you to that board meeting." I don't want to go anymore, Emma whispered. I know, but your grandfather's seat has been empty for 5 years. It's time for a Richardson to sit in it again. Harold nodded firmly. He's right, child. James would want you there. Emma looked at the country club entrance. Then she straightened her spine, lifted her chin, and nodded. Okay, let's go. Lawrence Morgan led Emma toward the entrance, Harold walking on her other side. The crowd parted silently now. Richard stood frozen, watching his world collapse. They climbed the steps. Mike the security guard stood there, his face stricken. Miss Richardson, he said quietly, I'm so sorry. Emma paused. You were doing your job, I understand. No, I should have trusted my instincts. Learn from it, Emma said simply. Then she walked through the doors. The interior was magnificent. Marble floors, crystal chandeliers, wood paneling, oil paintings lined the walls. Emma stopped in front of one painting. A bronze plaque beneath it read, James Richardson, S.R., founding member 1968. Her grandfather stared back at her. He was so proud of you, Harold said softly. He'd carry your photo everywhere, showing everyone his little warrior. Emma's eyes filled with tears. I wish I remembered him better. You're living his legacy. That's what matters. They climbed the staircase to the second floor. The boardroom doors stood at the end of the hallway. Morgan pushed them open. 11 people sat around a massive mahogany table. All of them turned to stare. One seat remained empty. A small nameplate sat in front of it, Richardson asterisk. Dust covered it, 5 years of dust. Victoria Ashford, the board chair, stood. She was in her 60s, elegant, with steel-gray hair and pearls. Emma Richardson, she said, emotion thick in her voice. It's really you. She came around the table, pulling Emma into an embrace. I am so sorry, Victoria whispered. We should have reached out years ago. We should have protected you. Emma stood stiffly, not sure how to respond. Victoria pulled back, wiping her eyes. Your grandfather was my father's best friend, and today, she couldn't finish. Today you humiliated his granddaughter, Morgan said bluntly. He guided Emma to the empty Richardson chair. She sat down slowly. The leather creaked. Morgan pulled out documents, spreading them across the table. Emma Richardson, sole trustee of the Richardson Family Trust, 35% ownership, full voting rights. Victoria nodded. The vote is tabled. Emma, we need to discuss. Later, Morgan interrupted. Right now, we address what happened outside. He looked around the table. Raise your hand if you knew there was a Richardson heir. 7 hands went up. So the majority of you knew Emma existed, but never verified she'd received information or support. Silence around the table. That ends today, Morgan continued. Effective immediately, the Richardson Family Trust is activating all oversight rights, full audit of club finances, review of all board decisions, and formal investigation into Richard Whitmore's conduct. I second that motion, Harold said firmly. All in favor? Victoria asked. 10 hands rose. Motion passes, Victoria said. Emma, welcome home. Emma sat quietly, letting the moment wash over her. She'd done it, survived the worst, claimed her rightful place. Morgan leaned close. You did good, kid. Your grandfather would be so proud. Can I say something? Emma asked quietly. Victoria nodded. Of course. Emma stood. Her legs shook, but her voice was steady. I came here today expecting to be heard. Instead, I was humiliated, accused, handcuffed, all because I didn't look like what someone expected. She paused. My grandfather built this place believing character mattered more than appearance. Today proved how far we've fallen. So I'm not just here to reclaim my seat. I'm here to fight for what this club was supposed to be, where everyone belongs, where truth matters, where people are judged by their actions, not assumptions. She looked around the table. That starts now, and if anyone here can't accept that, there's the door. Nobody moved. Finally, Victoria stood, tears streaming down her face. She started clapping. Harold joined her, then Morgan. Then one by one, every board member stood and applauded. Emma stood at her grandfather's seat, knowing this was just the beginning of a much longer fight. But for now, she'd won. And outside, Richard Whitmore was learning that truth doesn't need permission. It just needs time. Saturday evening, 6:47 p.m. Richard Whitmore sat in his home office, curtains drawn, lights off. His phone lay face down on the desk. He couldn't look at it anymore, couldn't handle the constant notifications. His first mistake had been underestimating how fast things spread online. The videos started appearing around 3:30 p.m., first on Instagram, then Twitter, then Facebook, then everywhere. Millionaire mocks teen, gets DSTROYD when she proves she owns the place. 2.3 million views in 3 hours. Country Club Karen calls cops on actual owner. 4.1 million views. This man's face when he realizes his mistake will haunt him forever. 6.8 million views. Every video showed the same thing. Richard snatching Emma's documents, Richard laughing at her, Richard calling the police. And then the devastating moment when Harold Whitfield confirmed the birthmark and Richard's face went from smug to horrified. The internet had found its villain, and the internet never forgets. Patricia knocked on the office door. Richard didn't respond. She opened it anyway. "We need to talk." "Not now." "Yes, now." She stepped inside, closing the door. "My phone hasn't stopped ringing. Everyone asking if that's really you in the videos." "What did you tell them?" "What could I tell them? It is you, Richard, and I'm standing right there beside you, filming and laughing." Richard finally looked up. Patricia's face was pale, her makeup smudged. "I filed for separation," she said quietly. "My lawyer's sending papers Monday morning." "You what?" "I'm not going down with you. I have a reputation to protect." "I'm your husband." "You're a liability." Patricia's voice was cold now. "I watched you humiliate a teenage girl, watched you refuse to examine documents, watched you call the police on her because she didn't look right to you." She opened the door. "My lawyer says I should sue you too, for reputational damage. I'm considering it." She left, closing the door firmly. Richard stared at the space where she'd stood. 22 years of marriage, gone in one conversation. His phone buzzed. He couldn't help himself. He flipped it over. CNN alert. Virginia Country Club discrimination incident goes viral, club owner under investigation. Richard's hands started shaking. Sunday morning, 8:15 a.m. Emma sat at the small kitchen table in her apartment, laptop open. Grandma rose beside her with tea and tissues. The videos were everywhere. Emma had watched a few, then stopped. Seeing herself handcuffed, seeing the fear in her own eyes, it was too much. "You need to eat something, baby girl," Rose said, pushing a plate toward her. "I'm not hungry." Emma's phone buzzed for the 1,000th time. Sophie had called 6 times. Marcus had texted 47 messages. Jennifer had sent a long voice message about how brave Emma was. But Emma didn't feel brave. She felt exhausted, exposed. "The news wants to interview you," Rose said carefully. "Mr. Morgan called. CNN, ABC, NBC, they all want to talk to you." "I don't want to talk to anyone." "I know, but Mr. Morgan thinks it might help. Let you tell your story in your own words." Emma closed her laptop. "What's the point? Everyone's already decided what happened." Rose reached across the table, taking Emma's hand. "Baby, you're right that people have decided. They've decided you're brave. They've decided what happened to you was wrong and Richard Whitmore needs to pay for it. That doesn't make me feel better. Maybe it'll help someone else. Some other kid who's been dismissed or ignored. Maybe seeing you stand up will give them courage." Emma looked at her grandmother, at the wisdom in those eyes. "Okay," Emma said quietly. "I'll do one interview, just one." Rose squeezed her hand. "That's my warrior." Monday morning, 9:00 a.m. Richard pulled into the parking lot of his real estate development company. Whitmore Properties had been his baby for 23 years. He noticed immediately that something was wrong. The parking lot was too empty, only 5 cars when there should have been 20. Inside, his business partner Chad Morrison stood in the hallway, looking uncomfortable. "Where is everyone?" Richard demanded. "Richard, we need to talk, in your office." They walked in silence. Chad closed the door. "I'm buying you out," Chad said without preamble. "What?" "I'm exercising the emergency buyout clause, the one that lets either partner force a sale if the other becomes a liability." Richard's blood ran cold. "You can't do that." "I can, and I am. Our 3 biggest clients called this morning, canceled their contracts, said they couldn't work with us after what happened Saturday. 7 potential deals fell through." Chad pulled out a folder. "You're toxic, Richard. Every video has our company name tagged. People are calling us racist. They're organizing boycotts." "That's all blown out of proportion." "You handcuffed a teenage girl." Chad's voice rose. "It doesn't matter if it's blown out of proportion. It happened, and now it's costing us millions." He slid the folder across the desk. "The buyout offer is fair. You have 48 hours to accept or I'll pursue it through the courts." Chad stood. "I'm sorry, Richard, but I have a family to feed, and I can't do either with you as my partner." He left quietly. Richard opened the folder. The number at the bottom made his stomach drop. Chad was offering 32 cents on the dollar. But if he fought it in court, the value would drop even more. He was trapped. Monday afternoon, 2:00 p.m. Emma sat in a CNN studio, makeup applied, microphone clipped to her blouse. Across from her, journalist Sarah Chen smiled warmly. "Just relax and be yourself," Sarah said. "Tell your story." Emma nodded, her throat tight. Lawrence Morgan sat off camera, giving her an encouraging nod. Grandma Rose stood beside him, dabbing at her eyes. 30 seconds, a producer called. The red light blinked on. "Good afternoon. I'm Sarah Chen, and joining me today is Emma Richardson, the 17-year-old whose experience has sparked a national conversation about prejudice and assumptions. Emma, thank you for being here." "Thank you for having me," Emma said quietly. "Can you tell us what happened Saturday afternoon?" Emma took a breath. Then she told the story, all of it, the email, her decision to go alone, Richard snatching her documents, the laughter, the handcuffs. Her voice stayed steady, but her hands trembled. Sarah listened intently. "When those handcuffs went on, what went through your mind?" "I thought about my grandfather, about everything he fought for, about how he built that club believing people should be judged by character, not appearance. And I thought about how far we still have to go." "What do you think this is really about?" "I think it's about assumptions," Emma said. "Richard Whitmore saw me and made assumptions based on how I looked. He never examined my documents, never verified my claims. He just decided I was lying." She looked directly at the camera. "That happens to people every single day. People who are dismissed or ignored just for telling their truth. I had documents and a lawyer and video evidence. But what about people who don't? Who's fighting for them?" Sarah leaned forward. "What would you say to Richard Whitmore if he was watching?" Emma considered. "I'd say I hope you learn from this. I hope you understand that your assumptions hurt people, real people, and I hope you use whatever time you have left to become better than you were Saturday." The interview continued for another 20 minutes. By the time it ended, Emma felt drained but lighter. "You did beautifully," Sarah said. Rose pulled Emma into a hug. Your grandfather is so proud right now. Tuesday morning, 10:30 a.m. The Whitmore Country Club held an emergency board meeting. All 12 members present, including Emma and Harold. Victoria Ashford called the meeting to order. We have several urgent matters. First, the financial audit results. She pulled out a report. The forensic accountants found significant irregularities, shell companies, inflated invoices, kickbacks, total estimated theft, $847,000. Gasps around the table. Second, we've received 93 resignation requests from members who don't want to be associated with what happened. However, we've also received 426 applications for new memberships, many specifically citing Emma's story. Victoria smiled. Which brings me to the third matter. Emma, the board would like to formally offer you the position of Vice President of Member Relations. Part-time, weekends and summers, we need your voice, your perspective. Emma's eyes widened. I'm 17, I'm still in high school. We know, but we need your grandfather's vision. Emma looked at Harold, who nodded. Okay, she said slowly, I'll do it. The room erupted in applause. One more thing, Victoria said. We're establishing the James Richardson Memorial Scholarship Fund, full 4-year scholarships for students from modest backgrounds. Emma will chair the selection committee. Emma's eyes filled with tears. He would have loved that. I know he would have, Victoria said. Wednesday afternoon, 4:15 p.m. Richard Whitmore sat in his lawyer's office, signing documents. The buyout agreement, the settlement with the club, the agreement not to contest Patricia's divorce. Everything he'd built, gone. His lawyer, Thompson, watched him with barely concealed pity. I'm sorry it came to this, Richard. Everyone's sorry, Richard said bitterly. Nobody's doing anything about it. What would you like them to do? You were caught on video, multiple videos, doing exactly what people say you did. Richard signed the last document. What happens now? He asked. Now you rebuild, quietly, keep your head down. Maybe in a few years people will forget. Will they? Thompson hesitated. Probably not. The internet doesn't really forget, but they'll move on to the next scandal. Richard stood. I was protecting my club. No, Thompson said quietly. You were protecting your assumptions. There's a difference. Friday evening, 6:00 p.m. Emma stood in front of her grandfather's portrait at Whitmore Country Club. Harold found her there. Talking to him, Harold asked gently. Trying to, I'm not sure what to say. Tell him you won. Emma shook her head. It doesn't feel like winning. Richard Whitmore lost everything. I didn't want that. What did you want? I wanted him to see me, to understand that he was wrong, to learn something. Harold was quiet. Maybe he did. Maybe in losing everything, he finally learned what your grandfather always knew, that character matters more than appearances, that truth always wins. Emma turned to Harold. Do you really believe that? I have to. Otherwise, what was the point of everything James and I fought for? I got into Harvard, Emma said suddenly. Harold's face lit up. Emma, that's wonderful. This morning, early admission, full scholarship. What are you going to study? Law. I want to help people who can't help themselves. People who get dismissed because they don't look like what people expect. Harold put a hand on her shoulder. You're going to change the world, child, just like your grandfather did. 6 months later, Emma Richardson walked across the stage at her high school graduation. Valedictorian, full ride to Harvard, job offer waiting at the country club. But more than that, she'd become a voice, speaking at schools, giving interviews, telling her story to anyone who would listen. Richard Whitmore had moved to Florida, sold his house at a loss, started over in a small real estate office. His fall from grace was complete. Patricia remarried within 4 months. Officer Kelly was terminated. Officer Carter became an advocate for police reform. The country club thrived, more diverse, more welcoming, more aligned with James Richardson's original vision. And Emma, she became exactly what her grandfather hoped she'd be. A warrior. Emma Richardson's story isn't really about Richard Whitmore's downfall. It's not about revenge or punishment. It's about a 17-year-old girl who told the truth when everyone said she was lying, who stood her ground when everyone tried to push her away, who held onto her dignity when people tried to strip it from her. It's about the price of prejudice, not just for people who experience it, but for people who perpetuate it. Richard Whitmore lost his business, his marriage, his reputation, and his legacy because he made assumptions based on appearances, because he chose comfort over curiosity, because he decided someone didn't belong before giving them a chance to prove they did. This story tells us that truth doesn't need permission and that justice might take time, but it always arrives. Richard Whitmore forgot that lesson, and it cost him everything. The next time you meet someone who doesn't fit your expectations, who claims something you find hard to believe, who tells you a truth that challenges your assumptions, pause, listen, verify before you judge. Because somewhere out there, there's another Emma Richardson, waiting to be seen, waiting to be heard. Will you be the Richard Whitmore who destroys them, or the Harold Whitfield who saves them? That choice is yours. If this story touched you, subscribe right now, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and drop a comment. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next story.